Hello there, everybody. Welcome to, I think it's number 4 of MindSET. So for new people joining us today, I'm just going to talk a little bit, just a few seconds, about what we've done so far. So what we've done so far is we've been using different psychological techniques. I'm taking from DBT, and CBT, and other approaches. And so we've been looking at emotion regulation. We've been looking at helping people tolerate distress when they feel overwhelmed in a particular moment. We have looked at some mindfulness techniques that might help people through these difficult times. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the importance of storytelling. So we're going to tell some stories and hopefully link them to some psychological techniques that you can use when you're feeling overwhelmed, or even just when you want to improve the moment that you have. A kind of a way of living. So we're going to take something from mindfulness today, which is called participation, and we're going to take a distress tolerance technique called stop, and we're also going to do a mindfulness exercise as well. So we're going to try to do it through storytelling. We'll see how that goes. What would be really great is if people could either fire in questions or just let me know how we're going in terms of, am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? You want more explanations about something, a thumbs up, a finger, whatever it is that you, whatever you prefer, just so that we get that. That would be stunning. Okay, so what we're going to start with today is going to start with a mindfulness exercise. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say a series of words, these random words. And what I want you to do is I want you to try to notice where the words come in to your head. And if you can see them go out again. Like, do they drop down into your head? Do they come from the left side, from the right side, straight up? Well, then just notice it. And the task really here is to listen to the word, and as soon as the next word, let the word that I've just said just go and go back to the other word. So the real practice, or the real skill for mindfulness, is being able to control our attention. And when we can control our attention, what we can do is we can control our distress through that way, because it's much easier to control where we put our attention than it is to try and control our thoughts or what we believe. Yeah. So we're going to just practice going back to these words. So I'd ask you to do this perhaps with your eyes closed and with your feet resting gently on the floor. And so for mindfulness, we drop our hands into our laps and just to open, it's called the polyvagal. Just want to open ourselves up to the experience. And all we're going to do is just notice. Yeah. So the words are going to come reasonably fast. So we'll do this. We'll start and finish with the sound of the gong. Happiness. Picnic. Hospital. Clock. Question. Computer. Suicide. Paradise. Disgust. Obeying. Despair. Toaster. Sport. Hand sanitizer. Curtain. Telephone. lunch, connection, money, rhythm, breath. 485. PowerPoint. String. Holiday. Ocean. Sandwich. Contentment. Danger. Rhythm. Disgust. Despair. Mango. Succulent. Boring. Love. Shame. Consequences. Sunshine. Fresh air. Bottle. Words. So just stay with your eyes closed for a moment. And I just want you to see, just notice your breath. No need to do anything particular with your breath. Just notice it. And so just by noticing how it slows down, and just take a moment for it to slow down. Okay. So again, just all I want you to do is just be aware of what did you notice during that exercise? Where did your mind wander to? Were you spending time thinking about the past? Were you getting attached to each word, finding lots of meaning for it? Were you able to move your attention back just to the exercise itself, which was just to listen to each word and notice where it came in? Did you get caught thinking about the future, thinking about the past? So these exercises, the purpose of these exercises is often not important. What we're trying to teach in mindfulness is staying in this moment, because this moment is the only moment that we have. Yeah. So if anyone wants to give any feedback, we can. I'll just have a look on the board, see if there's some feedback. So we're getting great. So great. I love this. We're getting loads of hellos, hi, smiley faces. For me, people felt different words in different places. Great. Someone's asking, is it weird I started giggling? No, look, if you start giggling, great. We don't get enough of it. People said they felt happy words in their heart, like love and sunshine. So they saw how words mean different things. Zoe's answering these, great, well done. And people noticed the scary words in their stomach. Yeah. And also other people were saying that they found it hard to move on from negative words. And that's really true, because what our minds do is our brains are like these ruthless problem-solving machines, if we like. And what we do is that negative words are just more sticky. Yeah, because if you think back through evolution, negative words or negative things often meant death. Yeah, and part of the human mission was about staying alive. So it does feel like that. And then up until about 2400 BC, when we weren't in mortal danger nearly all of the time, we started trying to develop practices, which if you think about human existence over 60,000 years, 4,000 years ago is not that much. We started trying to develop practices of letting go of these kind of negative experiences. So those of you that noticed that the negative words stuck around, well, that's fine, right? Because that's the awareness part of it. Yeah. So, yeah. And some people are saying that they noticed that negative words came from below, whereas other people, other people was noticing from different ones. Some people are saying they felt more relaxed when they was listening to the words, but when they focused on their breath, they got more anxious. Yeah, that's very, very typical. And so those of you that start or get panicky when you think about your breathing, yeah, I know it's difficult, but continue to do it. Continue to practice your breathing, yeah, and just touch on it. So those of you that focus on your breathing, use words and use exercises that guide you, yeah, so that you can hook. It's called an anchor point, where you can hook onto your breath and the words at the same time. So you control your breathing through the instruction rather than just thinking about the breathing. That'd be easier for some. Yeah. Some people are saying they heard the negative words more than once. Yes. So those people, you often feel that squeeze in your chest as well when that happens. So great. I'm really pleased that loads of people are giving us feedback. Really want to know about the speed at which we're going. All right, so I think that we're going to send people some mindfulness exercises and some links to some mindfulness exercises. So that's great. Zoe's going at it. Yeah. Yeah, great. So some people were noticing, right? We've been talking for weeks now about body sensations, yeah. And some people were noticing that with the negative words, they could feel it in their body, their face and their head getting sweaty and stuff like that. Whereas other people, they got calmer on certain words, yeah. So you're noticing that link between your body sensations and the words, yeah. Right. It's amazing, isn't it, how words can influence the way that we feel and experience things. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that now. I'm going to talk a little bit now. The next skill that I'm going to talk about is what they call a stop skill. And this skill is designed to make you go, stop, right? So when you notice either your body sensations or you notice that you're getting overwhelmed, there's a series of, stop is a mnemonic or an acronym, and we're going to go through the elements of this that can help you notice when your thoughts, your body sensations, whatever, are starting to get out of control. Right. And so because we're going to focus on words, I'm going to tell you I'm going to tell you a story about something that happened to me, and then we're going to link each of these techniques to parts of that story. And I have to say, I'm not pleased about having to tell this story, but it was the only one that came to mind when I was thinking about this. So years ago, many years ago, when I was at university, I met this girl, and I went out with this girl, and I really liked this girl. I liked her a lot. I may even have thought she was the one, or something like that. But we only went out together for a few months, and then, strangely enough, she finished it and didn't want to see me. So it's about 10 years later. About 10 years later, I was near my house, and I was in a supermarket, and through the shelves in the supermarket, I caught a glimpse of this woman, and I saw very clearly that it was her. So, and I was so excited because I still really kind of like this woman. I was so excited that I ran around to the other aisle. I ran around and I gave her a big cuddle, ran up, embraced her, and said her name, said hi, oh, it's so lovely to see you. I buried my head in her neck, and I think to my eternal shame, I think I even gave her a little kiss on the neck and said, so lovely to see you. And as I got into this hug, as I was hugging her, I sort of noticed that she stopped. She'd frozen still, like her arms didn't move around mine, and so I froze, and I just started, and I felt her arms extended out and stuff like that. And as I looked down her arm, and I saw by the end of the time I got to her fingers, I saw these other fingers laced through her hand. And I looked at that, and then I looked up, and it was attached to another hand and another arm. And I looked up, and the arm was a different color from the other arm. And then I saw these hairs on the arm, and I saw these tattoos up this thing. And I glanced to the side, and I can see that she's standing there holding someone's hand. And I'm like, oh my God. And I remember I'd said, as I given her a hug, I said, oh, I've missed you. And as I did that, I kind of started to become more aware of my body, and I noticed that there was this kind of, that my belly was touching her belly, but not as close to her body as I would have expected. And I started to look down her body, and I saw this badge that said, please give up your seat for me on the tube. And I looked down, and I saw that she was saw that she was pregnant. And then that's how I stood back, and then I looked up into her face, and she looked reasonably horrified. And then she just gave me this look, and she was like, Darryl, is it Darryl? Is it Darryl? And I just remember I can feel it now. I remember the shame overcoming me in that moment, and sort of backing away. And I can still remember it now, and I can still remember it now. And the reason I'm telling that story is that sometimes when we're distressed, right, this is the technique for when we're distressed. So, when I saw her through the supermarket, through the shelves, if I had followed this stop skill, what I would have done is I would have seen her, and I would have just, boom, I just would have stopped. Yeah, I just would have stopped for a moment. A bit like when you're at home alone, and you think you hear a noise upstairs, yeah, and there's no one in the house. What do? We have this automatic response that makes us freeze, and then we start to tune in to what's going on. We either listen for other sounds, or we look around us and take more information. And if I would have walked around the aisle and had a look, I would have seen this girl with her, as it turns out, husband, because the other thing I saw on the finger was a little shiny gold ring. I would have seen her with her husband. Yeah. So if I had just stopped, not acted, and just thought, hold on a minute, stay in control. So the next part of what I could have done is I could have just taken a step back. I could have, instead of just rushing in, I could have stopped there, yeah, took a break, and maybe taken a deep breath. Yeah, and rather than let my feelings, my excitement at seeing her, which is the memory of her more, instead of letting the feelings overtake me and acting impulsively, I might have just started to start to observe and start to look around and sort of start to notice what was going on inside me, yeah, and what was going on in the surrounding area. And if I would have looked inside me in terms of my body sensations, I would have seen that I had an increased heart rate, that I was hot in the face, that I was full of energy, that I was excited, yeah. And actually, we don't always want to act on it in excitement. For example, you wouldn't want to go to a funeral with a winning lottery ticket in your pocket and celebrate at the funeral. You'd want to wait. And it's the same. So that was my happiness. I didn't let my happiness hold me back. My emotions got the better of me. And lots of people, their emotions get the better of them when they're in other emotions, when they're distressed, when they're anxious, when they're angry, when they're panicky, when they're feeling shame. When people are feeling shame, they might run away, or people are feeling sad, they might avoid certain situations. So instead of doing that, you just notice those body sensations. And of course, looking up and around, it would have been great for me to take in the details of that. And if I'd have employed the stop, the taking a breath, taking a step back, and starting to notice to take in the context of the situation, I probably would have proceeded more mindfully. And that is the P for the. So what I would have done is I would have acted with more awareness. In deciding what I was going to do, I would have maybe considered my feelings. I would have considered the situation and the other person's situation as well. So I might then, it'd be more easier for me to come to the conclusion that actually I might want to wait here. I might not want to rush in, because some actions will make situations either worse for me or worse for other people. And that was a situation that definitely made things worse for me. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about, are there situations when you could have used this stop skill, or what kind of situations would you use this skill for? So one of the things about this stop skill, is that it has a really high evidence base. So there's a really high connection between people just using this system of stop and practicing it. It seems to work in such a high number of people. So to summarize it, really, this is about stopping before we take an action that we might regret later on. So I'm just going to go and have a look at some of the questions here. So one of them is, are there situations when you could have used, is this a good skill for stopping yourself from self-harming? The simple answer is, this is a great skill for stopping self-harming. Very much so. Some of those impulsive actions, taking overdoses, hurting yourself, it's great to use this. And often what you can do is, when you stop, you can then go on and maybe use some of the other skills that we've talked about, like improve, or as we go on through the weeks, there's other ones. So stop can be like a first line of defense. What stop is designed to do, especially for impulsivity, it's designed to stretch the impulse part of that. From when something happens to you taking an action, and when you stop, it just stretches it, right? And even if it stretches it by a minute or 30 seconds, right, what it does is it gives you 30 seconds or 60 seconds to do something different. And we stop so that we can put new information into our brains so that we can change what we were going to do. So you might stop and use a different skill. You might just stop on its own, right? You might just stop. And think about, what your longer term goals are. So when people are self-harming, they're often only thinking about a short-term relief. The problem is that you get a short-term relief and a much longer-term shame consequence as part of it. So very much so. Someone's saying that they would use it when they panic because they tend to hide or just freeze. So some of you already have this, right? Which is great. You already have this, and now it's just about applying it into different areas. Right. Okay, so great. So there's not, yeah. So people can stop it from ruminating. So they can use stop for when they notice that their thoughts are starting to become more circular, starting to become faster or hotter in their head. So you can use it for thoughts, unhelpful beliefs. You can use it for body sensations. You can use it for situations. You can use it for content. You can use it even, as someone suggested, you can use it for during this COVID stuff, where a lot of the time we're sitting down all the time. You think, I'm going to stop sitting down. I'm going to get up and get going. So that's the stop skill for you, and I hope you got that. So the next skill that I'm going to use is, or going to talk about, is a mindfulness skill. And this mindfulness skill is called participate. And what participate is participating is a skill all by itself. And the way I would describe participating to you is, are there those of you that love dancing, or play instruments, or go running? What's the feeling like when you're dancing? So for most people, when they're dancing, what they're doing is they're not thinking about the way they look. They're not worrying about the future. They're not worrying about what they might have for dinner the next day. They're not thinking about how they made a mistake yesterday, or they're not thinking anything about. They're just like in the flow, going with what's going on in that moment. So participate is about jumping into life with all that you've got. It's spontaneous rather than impulsive. Right? Impulsive is an action without thinking, whereas spontaneity is awareness of what you're going to do. And examples of participating might be things like you get invited to a party, but and you don't really want to go. And what you do is you go to the party and you stand there with your back to the wall, with your head down, thinking, I just don't want to be here. Yeah? That's not participating. Participating would be going to the party and jumping into the middle of the dance floor, or talking to people. Yeah? And there'll be examples of when you've done this. And you can see that when you do this, this changes things. This changes the way that you react. And I'm going to give you some ideas for participating, because participating can be all across the board. This could be anything from singing in the shower to connecting with the universe even. So I'll tell you about a time when I really needed to use this skill. So my dad lives in America, and he lives in the southern states, and this was a few years ago. And I remember one Sunday morning, he saying to me, "You want to come to church?" And I was like, no, there is no way I want to go to church. In fact, I'm not even sure I want to go to church if I'm dead. And then he said, yeah, but there's a barbecue. And I'm thinking, the southern states, ribs, chicken, sweet corn, all of my favourite things. And I remember looking at my watch and thinking, God, it's 9 o'clock. Okay, yeah, I could tuck into a barbecue at 10 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, I said, yeah, okay. Okay. So we jump into the car, and we get to the church, and it's one of those real evangelical churches that I'm not particularly fond of. If you are, then enjoy it. And there were people running up and down saying, Jesus loves me, yes he does, Jesus loves me, yes he does. People that were filled with the Spirit of Christ and other stuff. And the minister was saying about that we were all going to hell, and we were all going to struggle for our sins. And that's just not my kind of thing. And I remember thinking, how long is this going to last? And I looked at my watch, and I think I'd been there for about 10 seconds. And I thought, how am I going to get through this? Yeah. So I said to my dad, look, can I borrow the car? And he's like, no. What? And then I said, God, yeah. And I said to him, look, I can't even smell the barbecue. What's going on here? And he said to me, the barbecue's at 1 o'clock. I was like, what? This church service was going to go on for like 3 hours. So, as you can guess, right, I just participated. So before I knew it, I was singing the songs at the top of my voice. I was running up and down the aisles. Jesus loves me, yes he does, yes he does. And I remember, I ran up to the, they were collecting money, and I remember putting $10 into that one, and I remember taking $40 out of that one, thinking, yeah, that's a profit. And anyway, I was running up and down, singing along and stuff like that. And I have to say, although this wasn't my favourite day ever, in fact, it wasn't anywhere close to a favourite day, what it did is it helped me get through the next few hours that I was there. So when we participate, what we can do, it's not only for increasing pleasure, it's for the things that we really struggle with. And I'm going to give you some ideas about practicing this. We're going to send you a worksheet on it. So when we participate, what we do is all that we have, going with a flow in the moment. Yeah. So for next week, what we'd like you to do is I'd like you to start practicing the stop and the participate skill, and see how you get on. So I'm just going to pop over and get some questions, have a look at some questions. Yeah, well done, Zoe. Yeah, so do you have any, right, so someone's asking, do you have any suggestions for activities that are not physical for participation? Yeah, you could, there will be some on the day, but you can do it, you can participate in anything. Yeah, you can participate in lessons, you can participate in writing reports, you can participate in conversations. Yeah, cueing in to each word, rather than thinking about what you're going to say, how you're going to respond to someone. You can just participate by listening to fully what they're saying, and then speaking back. You know, a lot of people that are anxious, what they do is they make scripts in their head. There's someone saying that they used the stop skill this morning when they started ruminating about the past, and they used the ice cold water, and that really helped. Yeah, participation, nice one, maybe. Well, participation would be good for getting more involved in the family time. Yeah, so you've got just participating with your family rather than thinking about what they've been like before, just diving into it. People with children, you can participate. You just get involved in games with kids, I Spy, things like that. Just throw yourself in with all you've got. Yeah. So someone's saying they like the idea of participating, but you get so anxious. Well, actually, what the participation does is it overrides the anxiety. Yeah. So again, lots of people asking for more. Yeah. So participation overrides the anxiety, and what you'll notice, and I promise you this, is that when you first do it, it quickly changes this participation. I would say in less than 10 minutes. All right, leave on this one. Yeah. So okay. So the other thing that people were mentioning there, someone talked about using cold water, and what you can do with cold water, which is kind of a bridge between the stop and the participate, right, is that in all mammals there is something called a mammalian dive response. Yeah. So when we're submerged in cold water, yeah, our hearts slow down, our breathing changes, and our thoughts stop and become more immediate. Yeah. So there's two ways you can use this cold water skill. One is you can just jump in a cold shower. And what you do when you jump in a cold shower, if you notice it hits the back of your neck or something like that, the first thing you do is you take this deep breath. Yeah. And the other thing is that when the water's cold, Yeah, we just start, our mind starts just thinking about how cold it is. And to act, and if you think about when you're distressed, you're the opposite of those things, aren't you? You're hot and your breathing is shallow. And this cold water creates this instant response. Yeah, so it changes the message going from your body up to your brain. Yeah. So when we're hot and sweaty and panicking, this message goes into our brain and it says panic. And most of the time we do. Where, yeah, through the physiological sensations. Whereas with the cold water, it has the opposite effect. It sends the message up to say, yeah, I'm breathing well, I'm not hot. Okay, all systems are relaxed. So it tricks the brain. And the other way you can do it is you just need to cover your face in either very cold, you can use a towel, compress, frozen peas, or wherever you feel the heat going on in your body. But you can dip your head in cold water and keep it around there, or with your wrists. Yeah, just get it on your pulses. Slow down the heart rate. And the great thing about this skill, if you can do it, is that it works every time. It works every time. It'll bring you down every time. Trust me, I've seen people very, very distressed, and I mean like uber distressed, and come down. And beautifully, the more distressed you are, the more you come down. So if you're 50 out of 100 distressed, you may get 40. You may be 40 afterwards. But if you're 90, if you're way up there, you would also come down to about 40. Yeah. And so try it out. If you try it out. There are people now that swear by it, and there's all sorts of ways that this is coming into society. Some cultures have been doing this. In Russia, they've been immersing themselves in freezing cold water for years. Some GPs are now using this technique, telling people go swim on Hampstead Heath or whatever, as a prescription. It's called social prescribing. Yeah. So jump in and get involved in that. There are other things that it does as well. So for example, one of the things that it's used for special forces. So when like the SAS or Marines or something like that, they're out on maneuvers and they're hungry and they're disorientated and they're trying to think of a plan. Or even when they're worried about being tortured and stuff like that, is that they do the immersion in cold water, and it really clears up their mind, so they notice a clarity in their thinking. So you can use either of these skills today. You can start the cold water and then start participating. Or so what we're trying to buy you when we were talking about that impulse bit is buying you some time to regulate yourself, make different choices. So you can use one of them, you can use all of them. And so for the participation bit, you can then just go and get on with whatever you were doing beforehand, or the goals or the tasks that you set yourself for that day. So there's loads of questions. Yeah. So some people are saying that one of the main reasons they've been able to not self-harm is just using the cold water technique. Some people are quoting from the book, which is great because I love this. I love this. What they're talking about. So the next bit for today, as we're trying to stay with the storytelling vibe, is that I'm going to tell you about a Zen story. Stephanie, participation is really hard. Any extra tips? Okay, let me answer that one first. So I suppose the extra tip for participate would be each time. What you can do is each time you participate and it works, is to note it down. Yeah, and what we're trying to do is you're trying to build up, like the person was saying with the cold water. What happens is the experience builds up in your builds up in your memory. Yeah, it builds up in your memory. It worked last time. It worked last time. So it's experiential. So just record and start to notice. Yes, it worked, and go back for it. So yes, participation is really hard. The other thing that helps with participating is to not judge yourself for not participating. Yeah, and when I say not judge yourself for not participating, this doesn't mean that you're not going to do it in future. It means that you just accept that you didn't do it this time, but that you would like to. Because what the judging yourself about it does is it makes you feel even worse, which as a consequence makes you less it makes you more vulnerable for the next time when you need to do it. And if you think about it in, what compassion is, or what a compassionate response to something would be to let go what's happened already. What's gone is gone. There's nothing we can do about that. But take a responsibility for trying it next time. Another tip for participation is if you can imagine yourself standing on the edge of something where you just feel off balance, where you might fall forward or fall backwards. See if you can feel yourself falling into it and go. I think Stephanie's telling me to shut up because she's like, okay, thank you. I think that means that's enough. She's got it. I'll stop that over-explaining bit. All right, so I thought we'd give you a little story, or a little story today. I'm going to change it slightly, right? So this story is about the story of two wolves. And what it's really about is that within us, there's two types. We're constantly having two types of person inside us. There's willing people. There's when we're willing. There's when we're willful. There's when we're in emotion mind. There's when we're in logic mind. It's when we feel disgusted with ourselves, and when we feel just about okay. We have these fluctuating states. So I want you to listen to this. So one evening, I don't know why they all have old Cherokees in them, but anyway. One evening, an old Cherokee Indian told his grandson about a battle, or this battle that I've been talking about, that goes on inside people. And he said, my son, there is a battle between two wolves inside each of us. One is evil and mischievous. It is anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, false pride, superiority. And the other one is good. The other one is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, empathy, compassion with ourselves, compassion for others, generosity and truth. So the grandson thought about this for a while, and then he asked his grandfather, so which wolf wins? And the grandfather looked at his grandson and simply replied, it's the one that you feed. So this is a well-known story, and when they talk about feeding, it's about the one that you engage with more. Anyway, I hope that you got the message from today, and that you can pick up these skills and give them a try. I would love to know your feedback for next week, and how you got on with some of these, or how you got on with some of the other ones. So Zoe's going to send you handouts on stop. If people want the story, that's fine. They're going to give you a participation Yeah. So the idea. So the participate, you're going to use a variety of things, stuff for connecting with the world and other people, but just participating in your own life. And I promise there'll be a variety in there. So that's it for today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.